What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock.com, with over 26 million high-quality photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech7. Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a high-quality website, blog, portfolio, and online store. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on a new account, go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech7.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian, and on this very warm Tuesday afternoon here on the East Coast, we are all melting. It is about 86 degrees here at the GFQ studios. I don't know, Paul, how warm is it where you are?
It's like a setup for a Rodney Dangerfield joke. Yeah. Andrew, it's so hot.
It's brutal.
As I mentioned earlier, I go for a walk every day and I listen to Audible books, and when I got home today, I just turned on the hose and sat under it.
It's that bad.
Oh, it's just awful.
Oh God, it's awful.
I had this conversation with my wife about the weather, because we live in New England, and basically you do too.
Yeah.
And obviously this is all human beings talk about in New England is the weather. But after what I can only describe as the single greatest spring in the history of New England, and I mean that very honestly, like seriously, like 60 to 90 straight days of beautiful weather. The summer has been very hot, very fast.
Hot, muggy, and rainy.
Yeah, and I am of the opinion that this is the hottest summer that I can remember that I've experienced. And I've been assured that this so far is only like the 4th or 5th hottest June that we've ever had here. And so the only thing I can attribute this to is that I'm actually going outside. Whereas like last summer or the year before, I was sitting in this air-conditioned office writing a Windows Phone book or something. And this year, I actually go outside like every single day. And you really notice it, when you're in the sun. And I actually took a picture today. Like, there have been an amazing number of days this year where it's just like blue sky, like just bright blue sky.
I'm at the point that I'm going to start taking the cap off the fire hydrants like a bad street kid.
Yeah.
And just start playing in the streets.
Right, and some like guys and dolls thing is going to break out on your street where all these guys are like snapping their finger and going back and forth.
Yeah, that's what. Well, I was thinking about like hanging out by the bodega. That's where I went. You went to Guys and Dolls, so we went to a whole different place.
I want to be very clear about something. I never went to Guys and Dolls.
Let me ask you: do you guys have quarter waters up there?
What is it called?
A quarter water.
I don't know because I don't know what that is. What is that?
So it's. I had this conversation with someone that was not from New York, and they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "A quarter water. It's this little tub of like sugared water. And it's like purple and green and blue and yellow, and we call them quarter waters because they used to be a quarter." I guess the New York thing. What you buy in the bodega, and then you get like a pack of smokes and at the age of 4, obviously, and potato chips. And you get a quarter water. It's like a New York thing. I don't know. People have no concept of what that is. But you were in New York. You were here last week.
I was.
I got a little drunk and I ran away.
Well, you had something to do.
I did.
I vaguely remember that being the case.
I had to do a show, but I got. Man, I'll tell you, MJ, she could throw down, and I was trying to keep up with her. No can do.
Mistake.
Yeah. Big mistake. I mean, I was done.
I drank a lot that day.
I think we all did. So you were in New York for the Nokia event on Thursday.
Yep.
And I got a chance to play with the 1020 a little bit, and I know you did also. So I want to know, what's your opinion of it, and I'll give you mine.
Well, I think that it's never going to be anything other than kind of a niche device, and that the future for Nokia and for Windows Phone in general is more lower end in the market. But honestly, a lot of the reports I've seen about this phone are incorrect in that it's not a giant camera with a smartphone built on it. It's just a Nokia phone with a beautiful camera. I mean, if you were to lay that thing on the table side by side with the 920, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
No,
it's not until you turn it over.
Yeah, I mean,
See the back.
it looks exactly the same. Even the specs are pretty much the same, except for the camera. And I think the 1020 has 2 gigs of memory, right?
Right. To handle the on-screen stuff they're doing with
Yeah.
those crazy high-resolution photos.
And the other thing is, it's surprisingly light.
I know. And I said to the guy from Nokia that I talked to that, I said, it's funny, when you pick this thing up, especially if you're used to a 920, where one of the big, the common digs that you hear is that the 920 is thick and heavy and kind of dense. It's a weird combination of bad adjectives, I guess. But the 1020, which looks identical, is much lighter. It's not just like a little bit lighter. It's immediately noticeably lighter. And
Oh my God.
What I said, it's like this thing is full of helium. Like you think it's like an engineering sample that has nothing in it.
I swear to you, when I picked that thing up, we were sitting at the table, and I nearly threw the thing over my shoulder because I was expecting it to weigh.
Because it's like a balloon.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing in it. Yeah.
It's surprisingly really light, but, you brought up an interesting thing. Like, I look at the Windows phones as higher-end phones. The 920 has a beautiful design, and it feels, it's a little heavy, but it feels like a expensive piece of hardware when you compare it to, a plasticky Android phone. But you're saying that the market for a Windows phone should be the lower-end market, and not these, $200, $300.
So I'm not actually saying it should be. I'm just saying that it is going to be. It
is going to be.
One of the things we saw this very month with the Windows Phone stats that we get out of Ad Duplex is that the Lumia 520, which is a very low-end device. In fact, you can buy it without a contract for depends on where you are, but the U.S. version, which is the T-Mobile version of the phone, is $125, no contract. It's a great phone, and it bears no resemblance whatsoever to any other phone that you could buy for that price point. It is easily the equal of any non-iPhone 5 iPhone, any equal of a year or older Android smartphone. It's a wonderful phone, $125. It is now the most frequently used Windows Phone handset on Earth already. It's only been out for a couple months. Well, the 520 is the international version. It's only been out for a couple months. And the other one that sort of rocketed near the top of the charts is the 620, and that was previously the least expensive Windows Phone handset. It's also available for under $200 without a contract. That's a small device, and so it's got a screen that's similar to like the iPhone 4 or 4S. And that one's the number 3 most frequently used Windows Phone smartphone. Number 2 being the 920, which of course was the previous flagship. But
who's buying those phones?
Well, I think what you're seeing is obviously first-time smartphone buyers, people who have multiple smartphones because they're doling them out to their kids or whatever in a family. They have like a family plan, and then of course people who live in emerging markets. If you are a typical middle-class consumer in, say, the United States, France, England, wherever, you might buy a high-end phone, but that represents a fairly small percentage of the overall market for smartphones worldwide. And there are a lot of countries where people simply can't afford those kind of devices. And that's why I said earlier, I think this is the niche, if you will, although it's a pretty big niche, that Windows Phone generally, and Nokia specifically, is probably going to fall into.
And the 1020 is going to fall into a smaller niche, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Right. But you know what, though? So I still think it's important because it is that aspirational device for the line. It is that device that shows you what's possible. And it is that device that hints at what will be coming to all other devices in the near future. And so I'm not saying that, in the mid-level Windows phones of this fall or next spring that you're going to see a 41 megapixel camera. But maybe what you see is like a 21 megapixel camera or some interim, 16 megapixel camera with great optics, the same phone software, and all of those capabilities, just not quite as high of a resolution. And I think that should be exciting to everybody because this is, once this thing hits the platform, it starts coming, it filters down to the lower end devices.
Oh, absolutely. Well. And it's gonna seep into, the other OEMs that are making phones for even Android and iOS. You have a 40, and it is a numbers game, regardless of what you talk about. We know that the megapixel thing really doesn't matter as much as the size of the sensor, but it is a numbers game. It's the same thing that Android has been doing with, controlling the market share because they've saturated the market.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see this growth in the number. Instead of seeing 8 megapixel, we're going to start seeing 14, 15, 16 megapixels.
I haven't done this, but if you were to compare, say, the 8 megapixel camera in the iPhone 5 to what is, I don't know what it is, a 12 maybe even a 16 megapixel camera, whatever it is in the Galaxy S4, those cameras are probably actually pretty comparable, right? They're probably, one of them may be better than the other, but they can be compared. When you go up to like a 41 megapixel camera, I mean, it's fair to say number of pixels does not equal quality, of course, but there's a lot of other things going on in the Nokia camera world, and it's not just about the sheer number of pixels, but you do get that capability, and it's something they've built into it that I think is very exciting, to kind of shoot pictures without worrying about the zoom level or doing any of that stuff. And then you can kind of zoom in and out of those pictures on the phone and resample smaller 5 megapixel versions of parts of it, where maybe it's the great example they would have shown in New York is like you're on the top of the
Empire State Building.
Empire State Building, thank you. And you're taking a picture of the city, and so that's a nice picture. But you can zoom into one of the streets, and you can actually see the individual people and the cabs and the street signs, and all of that stuff is very clear. And then you resample that part of it, and that becomes another photo. And then you zoom out again, and you go back, and well, here's another great little part. I can zoom in on Central Park or something, and that becomes a third photo. And that original 30 whatever megapixel picture that you took, 38, 36, whatever it is like this master that you can kind of zoom in and out of on and resample portions of for photos. So that's kind of exciting. And then, there's the software component of it, which the Pro Camera app that Nokia made for this, which is incredible. I don't know if you got a chance to play with that.
I did, yeah. It's actually really well done.
Really amazing.
Yeah.
And that's going to be coming to other high-end Nokia phones. So if you have a 920, 925, 928, pretty soon you'll be able to download that for your phone. And that gives you the live capability to adjust all of the settings and see through the viewfinder the impact
of it
that those settings will have on the picture you're taking. So for advanced, for actual photographers who know what the ISO settings and exposure and all that stuff is, you already know what you want, and you can do that stuff. But for the people like me who don't know any of that stuff well, you can play with the settings live, and all of them at once. You can they have those concentric half circles, and you can move the little knobs around, and you see the effect it has. And it's going to just teach people how to take great photos. It's an amazing capability.
What I really liked about the camera, I mean, it's actually a very, very good camera, and I wish I had time to compare it with like an iPhone, because I obviously I would like to see what the comparison is compared to the two phones, because the iPhone has kind of set the standard as far as a really good camera phone.
Right.
But the cool thing about it, like you were saying, is those advanced setting options that you get. And one thing that none of these cameras have, or maybe they do and I haven't used one, but as far as all the ones that I've used, none of them have a white balance adjustment. You have presets, but you can't, take the scale and just like go a little to the left and go a little to the right. That's something that a lot of advanced cameras have, where you can kind of set the Kelvin for the lighting and the white balance of the camera. The Nokia does that. The 1020 does that, and that is extremely useful. And I'll give you a perfect scenario that's going to come in handy. If, let's say, you're at dinner and you want to take a picture of your food, or you want to take a picture in the restaurant. The restaurant is dimly lit, and it's using a lot of candles, so it's going to be really warm, the picture. The white balance is going to be totally off. With this, you could actually pull back the white balance, and I did that there. I pulled back the white balance, and I made it cooler, and the picture was really,
and you can see it right on the viewfinder.
Really accurate.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was great.
The way smartphone photography is, especially in those kind of low light conditions you're talking about, it's hit or miss. You have no idea what's going to happen until you take the picture. And so everyone who has used a smartphone knows that you turn the flash on because it's dark. You get the light of 1,000 suns, and then you have these washed out people's faces, and then everything behind them is just black, and you can't see anything. And then I'll turn off the flash, and then if anybody moves even a little bit, you get that kind of blur effect. And there are Nokia cameras today, the 920, 925, 28 that actually do really well in low light. Actually, a lot of Nokias do, not just the high-end ones, but the 720, 820, 822, all those phones actually do pretty well in low light as well. But most smartphones don't, and it's just kind of we're in kind of a terrible place. Even on the existing Nokias before the 1020, you still have to wait till you take it to see what happened, right? There's a weird processing effect where the Nokias have a flash to focus feature, which I really like. So I turn off the flash, but the flash still triggers really quickly, and your initial reaction is, oh, it's going to be washed out, and then you get a preview, and for one half a second, you see it it's all washed out, and you're like, ah, damn. And then it adjusts, and the picture's perfect, and you're like, wow, that's really amazing, you know. But I think on the 1020, the ability to play with those settings in real time, and it's doing it right there in the viewfinder. It's just amazing. It's once you see it, it's so obvious. You just wonder why cameras didn't do this before, or phones.
I want to concentrate at least the first half of the show on this and cameras, because it's
Okay.
It's fascinating to me, and I'm actually, this is something we always discuss, and we get this email all the time from our viewers saying, you guys always talk about the camera phones, and yeah, I agree with you. Like, I would buy a phone that has, forget about the maker, like, as long as it has a phenomenal camera, like, that's what I want, because I like taking pictures. I like doing that. So I want to continue that, but since we're on the topic, I thought it would be a good time to take a little break and talk about Shutterstock, which is an advertiser of ours, and I'll tell you how it ties in. So if you're a photographer and you're looking to kind of sell some of your stuff, you can on Shutterstock. You could actually take your photos and post it on there and sell your pictures. If you have a lot of stock photos you've taken of, let's say, New York. I know, for example, Metro Scene, one of our viewers, he goes to all these cities and takes these phenomenal photos. You could actually sell them on Shutterstock if you're a photographer. If you're looking for photos, if you're looking for any kind of high-quality stock photo, illustration, vector file, or even video, Shutterstock is a great place for you, because they have over 26 million photos, and they're adding over 10,000 of them a day, which is unbelievable. And they're offering a great deal for our viewers. If you watch What the Tech, you get 30% off a new account by going to Shutterstock.com and using offer code WhatTheTech7. That's WhatTheTech7 at Shutterstock. So I've told the story 1,000 times, and we're still doing it. We're very slow to adapt here at the GFK Network. We're looking to do some video opens, and we're looking to add some outros to all our podcasts. And we're going on Shutterstock, and we're finding all these great videos to implement in our podcast. So they have a lot of stuff for you. They have great stuff, great service, great people, and we use it personally here. Shutterstock.com. Use offer code WhatTheTech7. And you get 30% off on a new account. It's a significant discount. We're not talking chump change there. 30% off on a new account. What the Tech 7. I want to thank Shutterstock for supporting What the Tech. So, Paul, I want to talk about this since we're talking about cameras. But I was reading this interesting article. I want to say it was on Ars Technica, and they were saying how, the whole story is that camera phones have killed the camera business. Everybody has an iPhone. Everybody has a Android phone, and it's killed this point and shoot business, and it's killed the whole concept of going and buying a camera. But this guy was making the argument that it's actually helped higher end cameras like DSLRs, because now you're actually taking good pictures and you're appreciating what a good picture is, and people are actually going and buying DSLRs to kind of get into photography a little bit more. And I want to see what you think of that, because you have said, like, you wish you could just leave the DSLR at home and just take this, take a phone and do all your photography when you're on vacation.
Yeah, if a 1020 review phone arrives in time before I go to Amsterdam, which, by the way, I'm a little nervous about it because I don't trust these people, but if it does, I will use that as my camera on this trip. Like, I've been waiting for that point where we can cross that line, and I think this phone will accomplish that. Obviously, there are questions about battery life and whatever, but I think that this is the device that does that. But even still, with a 920, and I think you could make a good case for a lot of smartphones today. HTC 8X would be among them. iPhone 5, of course, Galaxy S4. If you're walking around on some vacation during the day and it's sunny out, and you're taking photos, a lot of those pictures are going to be fantastic. I mean, so we're kind of already there. When I was in San Francisco, and Mary Jo and I and my wife and some other people went up to Sonoma for the weekend afterwards, and we went around and we looked at wineries and we ate out and we did all that kind of stuff. Alex Gumpel from Twit took us up in a plane, and I brought a camera, like an actual like a point and shoot camera. And I took 3 pictures with it, and then I said, "Okay, that's enough of that."
What am I doing?
It was like it just didn't matter, And so I brought this camera on the trip, thinking this time I would want it. And honestly, what you want is your smartphone, because not only takes good pictures, but you can share them immediately on Facebook if that's what you want to do, or however you want to save them. And I think that's the issue, for cameras. I mean, as good as they may be, I think for most people, They don't really need a camera. And I'm right on the edge. It's going to depend very much on the quality of the device that I have. And the 1020 absolutely crosses that line, and that's what I've been waiting for. One of the conversations that came up at the 1020 launch event between me and Mary Jo and some other people who kind of do what we do was, well, what do you really, if you had to really think about it, and it's hard to gauge this because there's no app that will measure this for you, but if you think about the amount of time you spend on your phone, what do you think the number one activity is? And I actually bet that it's photo related, not just the taking of pictures, but the sharing of pictures, sure. Looking at them and picking the one you want to share, all that stuff. If you were to add it up, and the time you spend in mail and Twitter, in playing a game or reading a book or whatever it is you do on your phone, I bet for a lot of people, certainly for me, and by the way, for everyone this group of 5 or 6 people that we talked about this, all agreed that photography is probably number one. And so that's why we talk about it, because if it isn't number one for you today, well, it's not going to be number one for everyone all the time, but I think for a lot of people, once these cameras in the phones cross that line, that's where it happens.
I think it's also added, over the last, let's say, 2 or 3 years, this appreciation for photography has kind of happened to people that aren't involved in it. They're not real photographers. They'd never even owned a camera. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting really involved in taking good pictures, and they appreciate good pictures. Of course, there's this stupid craze with the Instagram crap where, you take a beautiful picture and then you ruin it by adding all these crappy filters. But, I like to bring up my wife a lot because she is the average user for all these devices. And I get this real-world experience of what it's like for, like, a normal person to kind of use an iPhone or use a camera. Her friend had a kid, and she's looking for something to do over the summer. So she goes, you know what? I want to go over there and I want to take a couple of pictures of her kid with my DSLR. She went, she took like a couple classes in photography, and she took pictures. And I'm like, wow, these are great shots she got. And she's never used a DSLR before. She just took a couple classes online. And now she's gotten really into it. And the reason why she got into it is because she's had an iPhone for a while, and she got used to taking some really nice pictures. And she goes, I kind of want to take better pictures. I know I can't do it with the iPhone, and she got into this now. I think it's kind of opening up this new world to people saying, hey, listen, the Polaroid era is gone. Like, you don't have to worry about taking a really crappy picture. Like, you could get a really nice picture with either phone, and if you want to take the next step, you could go and buy a camera that's not overly expensive.
Leaving for a moment that a lot of the people who share photos from their phones push them through Instagram, making it look like a Polaroid, and thus destroying the quality of it in the process. Sure.
I think it's fascinating.
I don't, ultimately, I think the market for SLRs, DSLRs, even the ones that are very small and portable and all that kind of stuff, it's still an extra device you have to bring around. You have to really think about it. You also have to make that decision on the fly. Like, you can only have one of them out. I mean, and if you take one on the DSLR, you've missed a sharing opportunity if it's a really cool picture. It kind of reminds me of the big, VHS recorders when they first came out. You'd go to Disney World in 1981, 82 or whatever, and you'd see some goon walking around with like a video cassette recorder that actually took full-size tapes,
I had that in my attic, by the way. I have a JVC in my attic.
Yeah, I mean, some people had those things. I mean, of course, the kind of early adopters. When video recording went mainstream, those things became very small. And now that's another mainstream activity you can do with a smartphone, and the quality of that thing is actually fine, because one of the things I learned as a parent, because when you have your first kid, you want to record everything like it's super important or something. And then what you realize is I've shot 221 hours of video, and approximately 7 minutes of this is interesting. Photos and very short videos that you can take with the same device, by the way, it could be a DSLR too. I mean, whatever it is. It's kind of enough, I think, for most people. I mean, some people want to make movies, but most of us don't want the responsibility of editing that movie when it's done. We just want these little short things. Look here, the kid goes down the slide. There's a 10-second video. Great.
The video thing is fascinating because it's kind of taking a back seat towards the actual photography ability, the taking a picture ability.
Well, by the way,
cameras.
Not to turn this into a 1020 selling video, but that's another amazing feature of the 1020, right? So it obviously does HD video recording, but it does stereo audio recording with noise cancellation. And so they do this great kind of demo where they're recording like music being played in a very crowded and loud club kind of environment, and then the person watches the video on her phone on the way home, and all you hear is the music. It's like it's crystal clear.
So is it the hardware that's doing it, or is it the processing that the software is able to do?
Some of both, yeah. Because
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I was on WinSupersite, and I wanted to pull it up. You had a picture of the actual camera sensor.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it up to pull it up. What is the comparison? Because there were two sensors in that shot on WinSupersite.
Yeah, so go to the menu, and if it's off the front page, you can find it by going to like mobile and then Windows Phone.
I can't. Yeah, I can't pull it up because the stupid computer locked up, of course, and this was a huge part of what I wanted to talk about. But
yeah, so it's like the fourth article down. But yeah, the amazing part about that is what it is a picture of two sensors, two camera modules, I guess, right? The one in the 1020 and the one in the 720. And when I reviewed the Lumia 720, even though it has the quality of the camera is supposed to be a little bit less than that of the 920, I found these things to be almost identical. They were neck and neck. And when you see the pictures, it's really funny. It's like this teeny little thing next to this huge thing.
Oh, it's huge.
And they're like, and that's the difference. They said, this is the 1020, and this little dicky thing over here, that's the 720. And that gives you the hardware part of it. You know, that this requires a very large sensor. And the other thing is, at the top of that article, there's a picture of the 1020 camera sensor opened up, so you can see the actual lens, which is floating on kind of a ring of tiny ball bearings. And there's an electronic motor that actually reacts to the movement of your hand, so that when you're holding the thing up and you're doing the jitter thing like we all do, whether we know it or not, it's compensating for that in real time. And you can put your finger on the lens, not in real life, but in the thing that they opened up for me. And it's really strange. It's like pushing in an eyeball, kind of. It gives a little bit, and it's very smooth because of all the ball bearings. You can feel it moving around on this surface, and it's like a robotic eye. It's really kind of amazing. It's not something that's fixed as it is in all other smartphones. It's sort of floating.
Yeah, I mean it's quite impressive, actually, the size of this thing, and the problem still is that you're giving up design when you're putting something large like this in there.
Well, but you saw the phone. Not really, right? I mean, it looks like a 920. It does, when you look at the back, obviously there's kind of a large black circle, but it doesn't stick out an inch or something. It's not some giganda prominent, like a SLR, like when you have a lens on it, even a small lens. It's not like that at all. It does come out X number of millimeters. I'm not sure how much it comes out, but it's really, like I said, you put them, and you saw it yourself. You put the cameras next to each other on a bench, and you'd have no idea which one's which.
Oh yeah, if you're looking at these things from just the screen, it's nearly identical. There's very little difference. It's only the back. Is there any projection from Microsoft coming for this device? Because it's coming at a weird time, also.
Yeah.
It's coming during the summer. It's getting released, I guess, next week. 8.1 is around the corner.
No, it's not. See, that's the problem.
Is it delayed?
Well, delayed's a tough word. I don't actually think it was delayed. I think has been the schedule. So when people see that Microsoft is putting out these, the Windows 8.1 release, the updates to Office this year, and Visual Studio, and Windows Server, obviously Azure, whatever, and then they say, well, what's going on with Windows Phone? It must be delayed. And yes, it's not on the same schedule. It is behind, but I don't actually think there was a point where they were like, we're going to hit this, and then there was a point where they were like, we're going to have to delay it. I think something's going on that they don't want to talk about, and it's kind of hard to explain. But I think the rough way to explain it is, Microsoft lives in a world where, by the way, like Android, the wireless carriers have all the control. And people rail against this, as I did, very violently. In fact, I got a lot of trouble with Microsoft back in 2010 because I wrote about this so openly. And, they obviously have relationships to worry about and all that kind of stuff that I don't. But it is a fact of life that the wireless carriers are responsible for those devices that people buy. And what I mean by that is they're responsible for not just selling them, but supporting them and servicing them and updating them. And it would be an exaggeration to say they take that responsibility very seriously, but they're not super interested in having people willy-nilly put stuff on their phones that will then impact their network and potentially impact everyone who's on their network. And that's why they don't, well, that combined with the low user base in Windows Phone in particular is why they don't just let anyone throw anything they want on their phone. So, for example, when Microsoft in the past wanted to update existing phones, the wireless carriers would say, you know, we only sold like 10,000 of these things. Why would we take this risk and expense, by the way? Because every time that Microsoft comes to them with an update, which may be combined with firmware and driver updates and software updates from the OEM, from the hardware maker that made the phone, they have to combine these things into a whole update. The carrier themselves may have things they want to put on there. They have to go through a testing phase that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do that a lot. They want to do that, well, they want to do it never. But let's just say in the course of a year, well, they'll be like, well, maybe we'll do it once, you know, because it's expensive. This kind of forces Microsoft to push things back. And so for Windows Phone 8, they've had this notion of GDR releases, these general distribution releases. They've created 3 of them. Only one of them is actually shipped to users. The second one is available on new phones starting this month. The 925 has
GDR2.
GDR2. The 1020 will have it. It will go out to some users, you know, soon, July, August, whatever, maybe later on other carriers, depending. Because again, no one's particularly excited about doing this. They want they want new phones. And
let me ask you this, Paul. Why is it that Apple's the only one that was able to kind of come up with this system on doing their own updates?
Well, because Apple has this leverage. You know, Apple, because of, you know, just a quirk of fate. You know, we all sort of forget this, but when Apple came out with the iPhone, they were turned down by everyone because they wanted complete control. So they went to Verizon first, I'm sure, and they went to whoever. They went to all these groups, all these wireless carriers, and every single one of them turned it down, except for Singular. Yeah. Singular, which became AT&T Wireless. When that was a smash success on AT&T, everybody wanted the iPhone, you know. Verizon didn't get the iPhone until, what was it, 2010? Or I think I could be wrong.
Oh, no, later, 2011.
2011. Okay, yeah. So 4 years, right? Part of the reason for that is Apple said, yeah, you can have it, but now you have to agree to these terms. And Verizon said no for a little while because that's how Verizon is. You know, they're not used to that. Apple was able to engineer a special deal. Those companies still have to pay to test those updates, but they push them out. You know, Android. Android is like a virus. It's like cancer. It's everywhere. You know, nobody at a wireless carrier actually cares if any update ever goes up for any Android device. It doesn't matter. They know that people will just buy more of those things. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You know, Windows Phone, I think it's partially because it doesn't sell very well, and the value prop isn't really there. It's a tough position, but I think when you look at the stuff that Microsoft wanted to accomplish between Windows 8 and 8.1 and the speed at which the carriers were willing to push that stuff out to existing users, that's why 8.1 is happening next year. And by next year, I mean like possibly as late as mid next year. It's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while.
It's not going to be January.
But the 1020, is the 1020 the 920 replacement, or it's just another one in the line? Because I don't see it that way. I don't see it as a 920 replacement.
I don't know how AT&T is going to position it. I mean, I think there's still a place for the 920. I guess we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it's the new flagship. I mean, there's no, you know, obviously, but it's the only Windows Phone that has 2 gigs of RAM. Obviously, it's the only Windows Phone that has this crazy camera. I think that's about it, right? I mean, the 920 has integrated wireless charging with which the 1020 does not have. I think that's about it.
I mean, the way that I see the 1020 is that, it's just cool. You know, it's a good phone with a really good camera. But if I want the, I still see the 920 as their flagship phone.
No.
I mean, and that's how I'm perceiving it. Maybe they haven't. I mean,
no, this is the new flagship.
Okay.
By the way, the other thing about Windows Phone, you know, someone just asked me this via email, and I've wondered this. Well, I sort of pondered this myself. On Windows 8, one of the things we've seen over the past year is they've done it a little more slowly than I would like, but they've updated those apps that ship in the OS. The Mail app has been updated, the Calendar app, the Music app, you know, all these things get updated. those things never get updated in Windows Phone. In fact, with rare exception, and one of those exceptions happens to be in GDR2, but with rare exception, the built-in apps in Windows Phone are never updated other than in a major release of the operating system, of which there have been 3, the original 7.5 and 8.0 so far. And so people will say, look, I mean, one of the easy ways you can improve Windows Phone is just to, update the Mail app, update music and videos, update calendar or whatever. Not that any of them are particularly lacking, but I mean, that would be one way you could keep this system fresh. Why don't they do that? And it's this, same thing, because those are core OS pieces. They all have to be tested by the carriers, and it's just the ugly effect of the system that we have. It's weird because you can buy like a Rhapsody app or a Spotify app or a Pandora app, and those things get updated all the time. Why can't music and video be updated all the time? What used to be the Zune software, and it's it's like it's in the OS. That's why, and that kind of blows because those apps should be updated more frequently. It's kind of a strange thing. Like maybe if they decoupled them from the OS
and have it as its own standalone app.
Yeah, like maybe the first time you sign in, it says, "Hey, by the way, you might want to,
But Apple has the same issue. If you think about it, Apple's not able to update their Mail app via an app update. They can't.
Okay, I don't.
But
use
the
iOS.
podcasting app is updated because they've separated from the iTunes, their music app.
Okay.
So I guess they face the same exact issue.
Actually, I would argue as an Apple fan, and I think you are too, so you'll agree with me on this one, that the Apple Mail app is perfect, and so they don't really need to update it.
Oh, it's the best thing ever. It's so good.
I don't even know why you brought
that's
that up.
one of the few. That's
a curious example.
I have a number of reasons why I don't use an iPhone. I do like to be in all the environments, and I'm already in the iOS experience with my iPad and my wife's iPhone and iPod Touch. So I don't really.
So
want
by the way,
one.
have you installed iOS 7?
I have not.
You should do that.
I've heard from people that maybe under an NDA that it is awful right now.
I you know what? Honestly, let's see. It has some growing to do, I guess is the way I would put it. I actually have to say, a lot of the external complaints about iOS 7, which come from people who watched the video of the broadcast they made, and it's got all those pastel-y colors and everything, and certainly that stuff's a little weird, but a lot of not a lot of it, but some of that is based on just the backgrounds they chose for the for the demo, like the default background. There's some stuff in iOS 7 that I think is actually kind of nice from a design standpoint, and as a Windows Phone fan, because of course we've had this stuff for 3 years or more now. I get all this. I get all the language they use. It's all about typography and white space now and all that kind of stuff. Let the content bleed to the edge of the screen and take over and all that. Yeah. We've been talking about that for a long time. But a lot of the apps that they have built into iOS have gotten really nice updates, and there's some nice typography going on, and I think there'll be some
visual-wise. I think it's beautiful. I'm just talking about the bugs. It's very buggy. They've said.
Oh yeah, maybe. Okay, I haven't used it that much, but they do a nice job of with animations, which I think actually kind of help you understand where things come from and where they went. So that when you launch an app, it kind of comes up out of the app, out of the icon, and it takes over the screen. And then when it goes away, it actually kind of minimizes down to that icon again. And it gives you a nice understanding of, okay, right, that's where I was. That you understand where it went. And then you also get that weird thing where you run like a third-party app and it just looks the same as it always did because, obviously they can't update the UI of everything if you're not using like the standard controls or whatever.
Actually, I want to talk about that for a little bit with you because we've always discussed the whole how iOS kind of fell behind and they became old-looking. The OS, it started. It wasn't the operating system of this generation hardware that's out. So I want to talk to you about that, and I kind of had a couple theories on that, and I also want to talk about OS X with you because I'm actually a little disappointed. I have run the OS X beta, and
that one I don't know anything about.
I am a little disappointed in the fact that they didn't take some of those key changes in iOS and put them into OS X.
Oh.
So I do want to talk about that, but before we do, Paul. We have to talk about Squarespace. The fast and easy way to create a high-quality blog, portfolio, website, and now e-commerce store. If you have an online store, guess what? You could do it on Squarespace. Very easy to do. Simple. 1, 2, 3. Squarespace keeps rolling out new features and products, integration, templates. They also have a 24/7 support team. So if you have any problems with your blog or website, you could just call them at any given time. And plans start at a low $8 a month for software and hosting. Also, you can get your domain with them too, so it's actually really easy. They've added a couple new stuff, like a new calendar feature called Events. Events collection that allows you to share scheduled updates like store sales and band tours. So if you have a band or obviously you have a store with their new e-commerce solution, it gives your website visitors a bunch of updates. They have a bunch of new templates on there too. Beautiful templates for photography. My friend Chauncey Hayden is a photographer, and I'm almost done with it. When I'm finished, I'm actually going to show it on the show. I've been working on his Squarespace site, and everything is drag and drop. Everything is easy to use, very easy, very fast. One of the other things that it does, it connects you to all your social media accounts. So you don't have to worry about doing everything yourself, where you have to add the Twitter and the Instagram, all that stuff. You get a free trial if you go to squarespace.com. And if you decide to purchase, if you use offer code WhatTheTech7, you get 10% off your first purchase on a new account, which is a great little deal. They're taking care of everything. I don't have to sell them to you guys. You already know Squarespace. They're an unbelievable company, very good to use. I'm actually very impressed with their e-commerce solution because we do websites on the side here at the GFQ Network, and I was contacted by a company that wanted a website months ago. This is before they added this. And I kind of had to pass the design and the job off to someone else because I hate dealing with e-commerce. I played around with their e-commerce solution, and it is simple. I mean, it's so simple that I have no idea how people aren't using this. Squarespace.com, use offer code WhatTheTech7 and get 10% off on a new account. And I want to thank Squarespace for supporting What the Tech. Paul, let's go into this because I'm fascinated because Apple's whole thing has been that they kind of want to streamline their OSs as far as the design goes. Some features want to be implemented. They added the iMessaging all across the board. They've added the notifications to OS X. But a lot of the design aspects that make iOS 7, nice and pretty are not in OS X.
Yeah.
And I was actually surprised by that because OS X is now feeling old to me.
Yeah, OS X's been feeling a little old for me for a little while, I guess. I don't spend as much time thinking about the Mac. I mean, I think that Apple's strategy of doing something different for PCs and something for mobile devices obviously stands in sharp contrast to what Microsoft's doing, and we can sort of argue about which one's better or worse or whatever. I think Apple's position is certainly defendable. In probably past couple of versions of OS X now, they've obviously been adding iOS features to OS X. But I guess the issue you're raising is whether they shouldn't use the same design language, essentially, kind of like how Microsoft is using Metro across PCs and phones, and also the Xbox, by the way. And actually, if iOS 7 is such a resounding success from a design standpoint, that's a great argument. They should bring that there, potentially. But they're not in this release. And part of it might just be the immaturity of it.
That's what I was going to say. Is it the fact that it's not a proven design that's going to work well with what they're doing?
The other part of it might just be Apple culture. Remember that, even though Apple is obviously a huge company and one of the biggest and most successful companies on earth, they also run this stuff like they're a startup. They run with very small teams working on specific things. And it wouldn't surprise me to discover that this was what they could do this year. In other words, they've got Johnny Ive. Obviously, he's doing hardware, and now he's doing software design. Let's focus on iOS first because this is our volume platform. It's not Mac OS X, it's iOS. Much, much bigger deal for them. And let's get it right there. And don't be surprised when whatever the next version is starts to pick up some of the design cues, on OS X. That wouldn't surprise me. The other alternative is they've simply examined this and said, look, that kind of design doesn't make sense on a desktop operating system.
There's a lot of weird inconsistencies with this release, and I'm going to be a little critical of them. Like one thing is that whole iLife suite that was their focal point in the whole Mac versus PC thing, where like, look, you get all this with us. You could do your photo editing, you could do video editing, everything comes for free. But if you had a PC, you would have to buy all this software. There's been no update since 2011. And this whole skeuomorphism thing that became a big deal, and they got rid of all the skeuomorphism in OS X, and they showed like, look, the binder, there's no leather wrapping around the contacts list.
They never really had, but they never had that on the Mac, right? I mean,
no, they did. They still have it on the Mac. Yeah, if I open up the calendar, it has a leather stitching on the top.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
that's terrible.
It looks
okay.
Like,
so
it looks like a peeling calendar.
I'm looking at their page. I don't spend as much time on this. So if you look at the calendar app in Mavericks, it does not have stitching. It's just a plain border. So in that sense, they've used the default OS X controls, I guess, or whatever, look and feel, rather than that stupid skeuomorphic thing.
Let me see contacts. Does contacts have? Yeah, contacts is actually a book. It has like the pages on the side. So you can flip.
So let's see. That one is not in here, but Safari never had anything right. I don't know. iBooks maybe is a good example. Or let's see. They don't have any good.
But I mean, iLife, the iPhoto, for example, is plagued with that. It has like this weird, like it almost looks like a.
Do this now.
Okay.
Go to apple.com/Mac. Right. Click on the OS, the humongous can't miss it Mavericks tidal wave thing.
Okay.
Okay. Now you see the grid of icons below it.
Apple.com/Mac.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm there.
Yeah. Find it.
Yep.
All right. Maverick. So you see the iBooks icon?
Yeah.
Actually, you can just scroll down. So scroll down to the iBooks section. So the first shot is the iBooks store, but then click on iBooks in iCloud. Okay.
Okay.
When you do that, what you see is that on the iPhone and the iPad, because they're showing the current version, those apps still look like a book, but the one in Mavericks is just plain.
That's interesting.
And that's the approach, right? Or they've gotten rid of that look. Same thing if you go back up to that grid and click on Calendar, what you'll see is that Calendar has lost that stupid ripped off page look that they used to have.
Yeah, but they made it like they displayed iWorks. Like they showed their iWorks suite. They're like, look, Excel, and look, you can do. Look at that. Look how great this is. And I thought that was what show iPhoto, which is a huge thing for them.
So I believe I made this prediction in the past, and you're making me talk about Apple more than I'm comfortable doing.
Well, that's what
I'll just say before I turn into water or something that I have predicted in the past, and I still do believe that the future of iLife is
nothing.
Less lofty, in the sense that in the past, people used to have to worry about making DVD movies so they could share them with their friends. And that stuff isn't really necessary anymore. So they don't really have to worry about iDVD and some of the more advanced stuff. But it's also going to be web-based, right? Like iWork, which means that it's something that you could do from any device, not just a Mac. And that really the future of that stuff is online services, right? Because ultimately, I guess there's a small audience of people that manages photos in iPhoto or something and backs them up to iCloud or whatever. But ultimately, people want to share. And that's not going to happen over the Apple stuff. It's going to happen in Facebook. It's going to happen on Flickr. It's going to happen on Instagram. And that what this thing needs to do is integrate with all that stuff.
Have you heard any information on Essentials from Microsoft with their video editing and the photo editing suites that they have? Is there any major changes coming to it?
No. So I actually think that I've not heard. So I'm speculating here, but I believe that stuff is probably in maintenance mode, and that the future of those kinds of activities on Windows is also in a like way mobile related. So I just wrote about the camera app, there's something called Movie Moments in Windows 8.1, and also obviously a Photos app, and that those things are how they see the future of these activities. Because again, it's not Photo Gallery, by the way, so I use it. I still have it pinned to my taskbar. It's one of the first things I install on every PC. Because it does a number of things really well. I like the way that it imports photos from a camera or from a device. It does share with a variety of online services, including YouTube and Flickr and Google, even with plugins and stuff. It's very powerful. But most people don't need that level of granularity and features and so forth, and they want simple things. It's like that short video I was talking about earlier. I made a video of Alex landing the plane. It's like 30, well, actually, it's probably like 50 seconds long or something. You can trim the beginning, you can trim the end, you can add music to it, you can put a title on it, and you can save it to your computer and you can share it. It's like super simple.
Yeah.
And even though, Movie Maker is still part of Essentials and it does more advanced stuff, most people don't need that stuff.
Because
that's what I was alluding to earlier with iLife. It's the same kind of thinking,
Because they actually got Movie Maker right, the last major update that they did. Like, it was actually like, wow, look, you can do all this stuff. It's actually pretty powerful, and its abilities, what it's able to do. And it seems like they've gone to more of a basic approach now to all these services.
Microsoft knows people don't use this stuff. That's the problem. Like, they have really good usage data, and people just don't do that.
Interesting. Oh.
These things are all tied together. It's kind of interesting because we were talking about cameras earlier and video cameras and everything, and how like a lot of us and anyone who's a parent will agree with this. The first kid, you'd take 1 million pictures and you'd make long videos, maybe depending on what had happened, and then the second one comes along and it's like it's I'm not saying you don't take any pictures, but it's a dramatically reduced experience because you kind of mature in the way that you do things, and you realize, like, especially with video recording, like, you can take hours and hours of video, but I mean, nobody, basically, statistically, nobody has the patience or the acumen or the desire to sit there at a computer and, like, edit, crop, and, all that, make transitions and titles. And that's just, God, it sounds wonderful. And you could go back and watch an old iLife video where they talked about doing that in iMovie and everyone's oohing and ahhing, and it's beautiful. But I don't know. It's just not a normal activity.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on a couple things. The price drop for the Surface. Mm-hmm. Significant price drop.
Yeah, I've written a lot about that, and apparently I hate the Surface RT is what I've been told. But actually, the problem with the price drop is apparently it's temporary, right? So when the Surface RT debuted at $500 last year, my argument was simply, look, you're coming into a market in which your major competitors, iPad and Android, have significant ecosystems with hundreds of thousands of apps, mature content delivery systems for movies, TV shows, and other content. Apple's got iTunes iTunes U and podcasts and all these other great things that are not available on Windows, at least not built into the OS. And you gotta have an advantage. Microsoft's advantage in Surface RT was, well, it comes with free Office, which is nice, but not necessarily a huge advantage on that kind of a device. And it was so lacking, I think, in these very basic areas that I think one of the things they should have come in with was a lower price. I think that's one of the ways you could compete. Like, look, we know you're taking a chance on a new platform. One of the advantages of adopting this is we're going to cost less. And so I think this temporary price point where it starts at $350 and goes up from there was the right price point for this thing from the beginning. The problem is now it's July, and a new Surface RT is going to come out in October, and a new Surface Pro is going to come out in October, and a new Surface Mini, which, by the way, I think will be a very great alternative for potential Surface RT customers.
8-inch Surface.
Yeah. So why would you buy one of these things now? Aside from the huge compatibility and performance issues with this device, which I think are insurmountable because of the nature of the hardware, the content platform's never taken off. The app situation has never taken off.
It is disappointing. The app situation is extremely disappointing.
Yeah. And so as I say those things, and as I write about that, I sort of believe that I'm being pragmatic about it, that I'm trying not to lead anyone astray, because I, like many people, have a long history of watching beautiful Microsoft hardware products squander in the marketplace, whether we're talking about, like, portable media centers or Zune or the Outlook phone they had very briefly, which was like a home phone, if you can believe that, integrated with your contact. It was beautiful. They obviously make great hardware, like keyboards and mice and all that kind of stuff, and Xbox, obviously. This isn't the time to take on this device. It's just not time. It's for all of the stuff, we've complained, or you especially, about how Apple still sells an iPad 2. Well, you know what? The iPad 2 still runs hundreds of thousands of apps. It still works with all those wonderful movies and TV shows and other content that they have in the iTunes store. I mean, the Surface RT today, no, it does not. And it's just tough. There's no Amazon on there. There's no Apple on there. There's no Photoshop on there. There's no Visual Studio on there. There's no Chrome on there. There's a lot of stuff that people just sort of take for granted in Windows that is not available in RT.
And you know, that's a major advantage that Windows has over even the iPad if you look at it. You know, all these applications that you're used to and you've been using for years are now available. You don't have to use desktop mode, but they're still there. But
they're there.
With
they're
RT,
there. That's the point.
With RT, which I'm guessing more RT devices sold than Pro services.
Right? Oh, actually, I don't know. They haven't really announced. I mean, there have been guesses around those lines.
So, I mean, let's just assume.
It hasn't exactly taken the world by storm. Let's put it that way.
I mean, let's just, a lot of people bought RT, and they can't use those applications that they would be willing to use that could potentially make this device into a great device.
Yeah.
But I understand it. You know,
this isn't like,
factors
remember when the HP canceled their tablet?
The Slate?
No, the Web OS tablet.
Oh, okay. Whatever it was. The Touch.
Was that what it was called?
Was that it? I don't remember. God, I can't remember.
Whatever that thing was. Anyway, I believe it went on sale that summer for like $99, and people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna get this thing. It's such a great deal." It's like, oh, geez, really? It's like you're buying like a dying platform. It doesn't matter how much it costs.
That's what it was.
You know, this is kind of a similar deal. Like we'll see what the Surface RT2 looks like. We'll see what platform the mini tablet runs on. I don't know, and obviously the Haswell-based Surface Pro is of interest to anybody. Those things are hopefully going to be, certainly be more viable than the existing units. Hopefully we'll put these things over the top. I guess we'll see. But beautiful hardware. I mean, just wonderful machines. But, you know, for that kind of money, you'd be better off buying an iPad mini. I mean, there's really no comparison.
God, I feel bad about that touchpad. It was actually a really nice device.
How do you think I feel about it? You know, people are like, oh, you're such an assball. You hate RT. And it's like, no, I just... you know what? I just have a brain in my head, and I realize this thing's a dead end. I don't know. I feel bad about it too.
I could buy an HP touchpad on Amazon right now for $278.
Nice. It was probably some guy who bought a bunch of them at $99.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, the specs.
I'm sure for its day. You know, a couple of years ago, whenever that was, I'm sure it was beautiful.
Has a dual core, 1.2 gigahertz Snapdragon processor. Better than most Android tablets out on the market.
Sure.
It was a nice
device.
device.
People are already writing in telling us how they can be hacked to run Android.
Yeah, there you go. Andrew, there's an active community making Android ROMs for it.
See? Told you. Of course there is. Because that's what you want.
Yeah. I want to buy an HP touchpad and take the OS off and put Android on it.
I want Franken OS.
This was a cool device.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is sad.
Why did they kill it?
By the way, I think
I can't remember
Surface
that.
RT. What?
Do you remember why they killed it?
The touchpad?
Yeah.
Because they didn't sell any. They had bought, I almost said BOS. They bought Web OS.
Yeah.
Made a small run with it. It didn't go well, and they decided just to get out of it. And so since then, I think they've essentially released it to the community, right? It's a community-driven thing. You don't really hear a lot about this, which, you know, shocker. It's kind of like the mobility world's version of the Amiga, you know, Web OS, because it was beautiful.
It was. I got one more question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm asking Paul a lot of questions because he provides me all my information, and then I go on other people's podcasts and use his thoughts as mine. Up. Yeah, like, you know, a source close to me said. I read this weird article about a Surface Watch.
Oh yeah. Rumored, yeah.
Microsoft's prototype smartwatch testing has moved over to the Surface team. It is a translucent aluminum smartwatch.
So I did hear about a watch previously. It wasn't a Surface watch at the time, although I guess if they had moved to the Surface team, that's why someone would have said that. And that makes sense, right? You would want all your hardware in the same place. I even saw a little kind of prototype of what this thing could have looked like. And as a long time Microsoft guy, obviously I remember the smartwatch days, and back in the 90s I had a Timex data link watch, which you would sync with your computer by holding it up, and it would do the lines on the monitor, and that would be how it would transmit data to the phone, to the watch. It was ridiculous. I lost it at the bottom of a river. But anyway, I was disappointed to see that the prototype I saw was just as big as any the smartwatch or whatever that was called, the spot watch. And so I don't know. It was just a prototype, but maybe that will get better over time. But yeah, everyone seems hell bent on wearable computing, and
what do you think about that? Do you think it's actually going to be something that people are going to want to use? I mean, to me, it makes a little bit more sense than having a stupid Bluetooth thing on your ear or having the Apple glasses crap.
I think we're going to go through some awkward stages, and Google Glass is a great example of it, where eventually what this will just lead to is a future where computing is just very pervasive, and it's kind of Star Trekian, where in Star Trek they don't have money and people don't really own things necessarily, but we all have our own computers and phones and tablets that we carry around, and we sort of jealously guard them from other people. And maybe in the future, as computing is just kind of pervasive and available, there'll be screens in different locations and you can just access your stuff from wherever. That kind of thing won't be as important. And maybe part of it is, people are going to have embedded devices that will do things, and tattoos that will do things, and it's going to be all kinds of stuff. It's a great time for me to retire. I'm looking forward to that because I really don't care about this stuff too much. But yeah, clearly it's happening.
And people want it, apparently. I've been asking a lot of people about this, and they're really excited about an Apple Watch. And everybody says, wow, it'd be so cool. And I go, what are you going to do on it that you don't do on your phone? You're still going to walk around with your phone in your hand. So not only are you going to have the phone, you're going to have some watch on your wrist now.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what it is, right? So Microsoft's already done this, right? And by the way, I have to say the Spot Watch had some nice attributes to it. It was the first Microsoft product that had like what they called a glanceable UI, and it would actually, so as you brought your arm up and looked at it, it wouldn't notice you were looking, but it noticed the motion of that. It would come on with information that would be relevant to you, and you could get things like weather updates and sports scores and that kind of thing. And they had all these great little scenarios. You'd be at the game watching a football game, and you could look at your watch, and because it would know you were at the football game, it would show you sports scores by default. Maybe you wanted to look at other scores or something like that. And it's kind of like a situational computing or location-based computing, which obviously has kind of filtered its way into smartphones now. It was an okay idea, and it didn't take off. So
you're not sold on any of this. You're not sold on it.
I don't know enough about what's coming. I mean, Apple is a company I don't want to discount because I have discounted them in the past, and they've obviously gone into great success. And so maybe a watch with an Apple logo on it becomes the next version of white headphones, where you see these people everywhere. And it is a badge of ego or something that people have, because now, look, I have the iPhone watch or whatever they call it, the iWatch, I guess.
I mean, I guess as like a companion device, but
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what could the watch do for me that I would have a difficult time doing on a phone. You know what? Where it really makes sense with Google Now. You're like Dick Tracy. You'll talk into your watch, sure, and you'll do it that way.
Yep. But that still is the same thing you were talking about. Why is that better than a smartphone? Because a smartphone could do that and do all those other things a smartphone.
I'd probably do a better job at it.
Okay.
Can't wait for the schmucks with the Google Watch and the Google glasses.
So I've run into people with Google Glass on several times now, including Andy Anako, who I saw Andy at the Nokia event, and I said, I would like a thank you because I did not immediately open hand smack you when I saw you with the Google glasses on.
Did he say that?
He said, that's fine. But he said, I would also like a thank you because I saw you coming and I took them off. So,
I don't know. It's too many devices.
Yeah,
too many.
Yeah, it's gonna. It's an immaturity thing. We're going through a rapid change. There's gonna be lots of things tried and lots of things will fail. It's like the Surface RT thing. I mean, we'll see how that goes. But that Windows world is changing. We have lots of device types that transform and they do all these different things. And some of them are kind of nifty and some of them are kind of ridiculous. And on the other end of 5 years, I mean, things will be different. And so wearable computing, I mean, God, it just started. I mean, Google Glasses is basically a prototype that people are wearing. It's not like you can't go into Best Buy and get it. So this is just the beginning.
There are moments that when I think about that Google Glass thing, I actually say, you know what? there's a cool factor to this thing. The fact that I could see, my emails coming in, it's just right on. You're like a Borg.
I don't like it.
You don't like it. You don't want to be a cyborg.
Nope.
I don't know. There's something like I look at it, I'm like, wow, this is probably going to be really dumb. And then I think about it. Wow, this is cool.
This is a topic for another day, but it's interesting to me that just as, and maybe, who knows, maybe Google Glass was the impetus for this in some ways. But, I have for many years now been sitting all day in front of a big screen. We now have smaller screens that we can carry around. We have little smartphone screens that sit in this pocket, and I can look them. I look at screens all day long. And I had I don't want to call it an epiphany, but the idea recently that, I need to spend less time in front of screens. Like, it's unhealthy. And that thing being up there all the time, that's not what I want. That is literally the opposite of what I want.
You want to be disconnected.
Yeah, I mean, for tonight, for example, I guess I could sit here like a goon and work on my book or, work or whatever, do TV things or something. But, like I said, every day I make an effort to go. I do literally walk every single day. And tonight I'm going to the beach. Like, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go swimming, and I'm not going to be looking at a screen. And, it's when you're as enmeshed in this stuff as we are, it's hard to make that break. And you see normal people walking around. I see my friends, like you go with a group of guys, they're all looking at their phone while you're sitting at the table, and you're like, guys, hey, I'm over here. Like, I don't know who you're sharing with on Facebook, but your friends are all right here, right now. What are you doing? And this is the thing we need to get over. It's like that's the immaturity thing I was talking about. I think we're gonna get through it. But for the short term, we're like cats looking at a string. We can't, like you get distracted. Like, look, this thing's happening. It's shiny.
I just got a message, and we'll wrap it up. Somebody messaged me today, asked me what's on my wrist right now. If you're watching live or if you're watching to the podcast, you'll see I have something on my wrist here, and it's not a tattoo.
It looks like a Star Wars tattoo.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I have a friend. Jess and I have a friend, and she does henna tattoos. And on Saturday night, we were all drinking, and she goes, I got the henna stuff. She does it for like weddings and parties. And she goes, I could do henna tattoos. And I said, absolutely, let's do a henna tattoo. And there's this cool logo. It's a Z with an infinity symbol. And my wife liked that. I'm like, yeah, put it on me too. She started drawing it, and I realized that this girl is really drunk. And right now, I'm actually embarrassed to walk around. It looks like a 14-year-old stupid kid was trying to draw a swastika but screwed up and tried to scribble over it.
It's like the logo for World War Z or something.
I don't even know what this is. And somebody looked at it and goes, is that a swastika? I'm like, oh my God, it kind of does look like it if you look at the side. And it looks like it's crying. It has like these dots, like it's crying. It's the most awful thing, and I can't get it off. I've been like scrubbing my arm with bleach and sandpaper. It won't come off.
It's funny.
So now, like, I'm permanently scarred.
Not permanent.
Well, for the next 3 weeks, I'm scarred.
Just semi-permanently.
I really wish I had an Apple Watch. An iWatch, so I could put it on my wrist.
Right. If you had a spot watch, it would cover it up because that thing was humongous.
Yeah. I was looking at the Spot Watch. I actually posted a picture in the chat room of the Spot Watch with a blue screen of death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a wristband. Yeah, like a Nike wristband. Like I'm playing basketball. I'm LeBron. I'm wearing a wristband.
No, you'd be like Dr. J. You got to go old school. You get like a red, white, and blue wristband.
Yeah. So this is what this thing is. It's not a tattoo.
You weren't in a prison camp or anything.
I wasn't in a prison. No, this is just an awful henna tattoo. And let me just tell you, do not have drunk people tattoo you.
That is just good advice.
Yeah. I was actually drunk when I got my real tattoo. That's a whole different story for a different night. So, all right, Paul. We had a good time in New York. Hopefully, when are you coming again?
It's funny. I could have been there as recently as now because they're having an event for this Halo game that's coming out for Windows Phone.
Oh, you should have come.
Well, I didn't because it's at night and I don't want to stay overnight. Can you imagine like my expense report? Like I went to New York and spent $600 to stay in a hotel and take the train so I could learn about a video game 24 hours before it came out.
Hotel,
like
you can stay here.
I just don't think they would.
I got the room. You could stay with us. We'll have a slumber party. We could broadcast the entire thing.
I have a limited amount of time before we go to Europe, so I gotta stop traveling.
Oh yeah, when are you going? What week are you going? So we can figure out.
I think we're going the 27th. So next week I'll be here, and then the week after that I'll be away. But I'll be doing it. I mean, I'm only going to take 1 week off while I'm away. So the 30th, I'll be available. But the week of the 5th, we're going to be traveling.
Well, maybe I could get MJ on that show.
Yeah.
I know if both of you are on, the universe explodes, but it's the end of the world. All right. WinSuperside.com for all things Paul Thurrott. You can follow him on Twitter at Thurrott. You can follow me, guys. Go ahead. Follow me at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. We're on Roku. We're not on Windows Phone, unfortunately. We're on Android. We're on iOS. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Also, subscribe to us. It helps us out because you guys download the show, and then I could get paid. So be sure to subscribe to us, and we'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.